Assalamu alaikum children, and welcome back to another episode of Safeeries. Today is the 3rd of Muharram, and on the 3rd of Muharram, Imam Hussein's camp reached the land of Karbala. Karbala is in a country called Iraq, and some of you may know it because you've been there. But with me today is wonderful uncle, and he's going to share a lot of his knowledge with us. Thank you again for being with us. Assalamu alaikum, uncle.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. That's all right. We're so glad that you can be here with us, sharing your stories about having visited Iraq. Because I think you're from Iraq, aren't you?
I'm from Monsterland.
Oh, you're from Monsterland.
Yeah.
Silly Layla, I didn't realise.
That's okay.
I do apologise. Yes, so Imam Hussein's camp reached the land of Karbala, and that meant they were one step closer to all the awful things that were about to happen to them. On this day, however, we remember a great hero named Muslim ibn Aqil. Muslim was Imam Hussein's cousin and a really, really good friend of his who carried the message of the Ahlul Bayt right until his last breath. And it is today that we tell the story of Muslim bin Aqil's mission to deliver a message. Would you like to hear this story, Uncle?
Inshallah, I would love to hear it.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us.
No worries.
Imam Hussein's caravan left Medina on the 28th of Rajab, and he reached Mecca on the 4th of Shaban. So, Imam Hussein didn't actually have like a clear idea in his mind that, you know, of all the
he knew what was going to happen.
He knew what was going to happen.
But the information that he was told, for example, they don't know exactly at what time exactly or what space they're going to die in. They just know the general idea.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
They don't know all the tiny little details. I see. But for the time being, he actually decided to stay in Mecca, at least until the month of Dhul Hajj, and perform the pilgrimage. The people of Kufa in Iraq heard of what had happened in Medina. Kufa was an important Shia centre. The Shias there had long suffered under Muawiyah. Kufa is a really interesting town. I'm not sure, but isn't that where Imam Mahdi will come back? And
there are narrations which say that's where he's going to have his home.
Oh, and he's got an office set up there?
Something like that, maybe in today's world.
Oh, yeah, like an office. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But Imam Ali used to lead from there, didn't he?
Yeah, he was leading there for a while.
Oh, I see. So even him and his family, they moved to Kufa.
Yeah, so there is some kind of connection there.
Ah, I see. And that's why the Shias were welcoming Imam Hussein. Yeah, I understand now. The Shias there had suffered really, really badly under Muawiyah. They feared even greater sufferings under Yazid, because Yazid was a lot worse than Muawiyah. Remember, Muawiyah used Islam to become strong and powerful, but Yazid simply wanted to destroy Islam and just make it like it never even existed.
Yeah.
That's all Yazid wanted. They felt that slowly Islam would be totally destroyed by the greed for power and the greed for being famous of these two horrible men. They were so concerned about making sure that the teachings of the Holy Prophet stayed absolutely pure. They needed an Imam who would teach them the real, true meaning of the Holy Quran and tell them about the true sayings of the Ahadith of the Holy Prophet. And I think this is a really important point to remember, children, that the Imams, they were warriors and they were fighters and they fed the poor.
Yeah.
But let's not forget they had a big, big duty to make sure that the message that Rasulullah brought with him was kept absolutely perfect.
Because that message is what helps us to become the best human beings.
I know.
Because whereas every single one of us, we have something within us called humanity. Humanity is basically what makes us good. But the purpose of this message was to take what made us good in the first place and make us even better.
Oh, I see. Absolutely. That's what the Prophet came to achieve.
Yeah.
He wanted us to be the best people that he could be. They held a meeting in the house of Sulaiman bin Surad and decided to write a letter to Imam Hussein inviting him. In this letter they wrote, "We invite you to come to Kufa as we have no Imam to guide us. Through you, Allah will bring us all together back onto the path of truth. A messenger took the letter to Mecca and gave it to Imam Hussein. A few days later, the people of Kufa sent like a special person to persuade Imam Hussein to go to Kufa. So this was how, they didn't have email or WhatsApp or mobile phones back in those days. So what they would do is that they'd send messengers back and forth between different people in different places. And that's how Imam Hussein got the invitation to go to Kufa.
Yeah.
His name was Qais ibn Mushir as-Saydawi. This was the special messenger. There followed hundreds of other letters and many other special messengers from the people of Kufa to Imam Hussein. The leader in Kufa was a man called Nu'man bin Bashir. Although he was a follower of Muawiyah and Yazid, he wasn't a bad person inside his heart. The people of Kufa believed that the Imam would be safe in Kufa. And, that's something that we should think about.
Just to make a point.
Yeah.
That's interesting what you said about someone not necessarily being bad. Take the example of Hur ibn Yazid.
Ah, yes.
He was although he was on the side of Yazid's army, he still showed respect to the Imam.
Yes.
And he made the right decision at the end of the day to be with the Imam.
He did. And I think there's a really good lesson in that for all of us. That even at the last minute, we can make the right choice. Inshallah. So when Imam Hussein got the news from Kufa of all these people that wanted him to go there, he thought, oh gosh, they really, really want me there. So what he did is he sent Muslim as his messenger to Kufa to see what things were like, what was really going on. And so that Muslim bin Aqil, his cousin, would then come back and tell Imam Hussein what the situation was really like, which just goes to show that the Imams are actually really, really clever. They didn't just walk into a situation without any knowledge of what was going on first. First of all, they made sure that the situation was good enough for them to walk into. Yeah. So the Imam would only go if there would be no danger to the people of Kufa or to the Imam or any of his companions or family. And that just goes to show how kind the Imam is, because he wasn't just thinking of his own family, he was thinking of the people of Kufa as well. He didn't want to put any of them in danger. He wrote a letter to the people of Kufa and gave it to Hazrat Muslim. In this letter, the Imam said, I am sending my cousin and one of my most trusted family members, Muslim bin Aqil, to tell me about what life is like in Kufa. If this report is what I am happy with and what you have written is true, I will be with you and joining you very soon. You must be very clear, though, that the Imam is only one who follows the book of Allah and serves Allah in all matters and affairs with justice, honesty and truth. So even back then, even before, the idea of Karbala was in Imam Hussein's mind, all he could think about was making sure that Allah was served in the best way possible. Yeah. Who was Muslim bin Aqil? He was the son of Aqil ibn Abu Talib. He was a famous warrior and he married a lovely lady, Ruqayya bint Ali, Imam's sister through another mother. We know of his 4 children: Abdullah, aged about 15 years, Muhammad, about 10, Ibrahim, who was 8, and young Ruqayya, who was just 5 or 6. All of these children had travelled with their parents and were in Mecca. As Hazrat Muslim was preparing for the journey, Imam Hussein went to him and said, Muslim, the whole world knows that you are one of the bravest warriors ever. It is just possible that seeing you in Kufa, some people may think that we want to fight Yazid. So take 2 of your sons, Muhammad and Ibrahim, with you. And when they see you with your young children, they'll know that we haven't come to fight, we've come in peace. And I think, again, that just shows how clever the Imam is. I mean, he knew that the people of Kufa might think they'd come to start some kind of fight. But the Imams didn't start fights for no reason. Do you remember some of the battles that Imam Hussein fought in? Battles like the Battle of Siffin, or even the Battle of Nahrawan?
They always gave people the opportunity not to fight.
What Uncle means is that when the Imams were ever faced with baddies or enemies, they always tried to talk to them first.
Yeah.
Didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yep, always.
Yeah.
Even in Karbala, in Imam Hussein's last moments, he still gave people the chance to change.
That's something, again, that's another lesson. There are so many lessons that we can, take from these wonderful stories. Hazrat Muslim and his two sons said goodbye to all, and they left Mecca. Their journey through the desert in the heat of summer was very difficult. They arrived in Kufa towards the end of Dhul Qa'd. They were received extremely well by the people of Kufa, so they were happily received. Very soon, more than 18,000 people appeared before Muslim and promised to obey Imam Hussein as their Imam and true leader.
Yeah.
So the situation was looking pretty good, actually. So Muslim went back to Imam Hussein and said, most of the people in Kufa are ready to take you as their Imam. So we can go to Kufa, it's fine. But amongst the people of Kufa, there were many spies who were, told by Yazid to report back to him about what was going on. So what do we mean by a spy, Uncle?
So Yazid, he's got someone working for him or someone who's with him. What he does, that spy, he goes to the other people who he doesn't like, and he pretends to be friends with them. He speaks to them, he gets information from them, then he reports back to Yazid.
Is it like playing I Spy? What, because you're spying?
That's a good question, I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, it just came to mind for some reason. I always think of that game. It's one of my favourites. But yeah, so a spy is basically someone who goes out amongst the people, tries to be their friend and get information from them. These spies were terrible. Why would you want to be on the side of Yazid when you had the chance for Imam Hussein, to be your true leader? Anyway, when Yazid heard from them of the invitations to Imam Hussein and the arrival in Kufa of Muslim, he was angry. He was furious. His face turned puffy and red. Even his eyes nearly popped out of his head. That's how angry Yazid could get, because he wasn't a good person. He had a really bad heart. So he sent a message to his leader in Basra, which is in the south of Iraq. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was the governor in Basra, and he told him to go to Kufa and take over the position of the leader there, the leader that we know as Nu'man ibn Bashir. Ibn Ziyad was also told to arrest Muslim and kill him and do anything, absolutely anything, to destroy the Shias in Kufa. Boy, that means Imam Hussein and his small, band of family, his small caravan, they were really, really threatened by him, weren't they? They were really scared, Uncle. Yeah. But how could a big, powerful, army like Yazid be scared of someone like Imam Hussein, who didn't have a large army with him?
The army of Yazid, they were scared because they were against people who had such strong belief in Allah.
Yeah.
That's what caused it.
So even though Yazid's army was really big in numbers, their faith was really small.
Yeah.
And so
all they think about is this world, right?
Yeah.
And they're so arrogant. They think that they're in control of their own lives, but Allah could take it just like that.
Absolutely.
Whereas these people, they had the help of Allah.
Yeah.
And if you have the help of Allah, no one can be against you.
Exactly. So Imam Hussein's, little camp was small, but their faith was huge. Ibn Ziyad was a cruel and horrible man. He arrived in Kufa on the evening of the 2nd of Dhul Hajj. On the following day, he went to the mosque and he spoke to the people of Kufa. He first told them that he was the new leader there. He promised that he would, anyone who tried to stop him, their families and themselves would be destroyed. and then he told them that they had to bring Hazrat Muslim to him. Ibn Ziyad closed off Kufa in such a way that no one could go in or out of the city without his permission. So he kind of boxed everybody in. It was awful, like being a rat in a cage.
Yeah.
And at this time, Hazrat Muslim was staying with Al-Mukhtar at the invitation of Hani bin Urwa, another leading member of the Shia community. He moved to Hani's house. This was done in secret, and except for a few people, no one knew where Hazrat Muslim was. Through a spy who pretended to be a Shia, Ibn Ziyad found out where Hazrat Muslim was. Hani was arrested and thrown into prison, and not wishing to endanger the lives of his friends, Hazrat Muslim and his 2 sons left Hani's house. He left the children with Qadi Shuraib, a judge, and went into the desert to try and get back to Imam Hussein to warn him not to go to Kufa. This was really tricky situation, because the situation in Kufa was way out of hand, uncle, and things had, you know, gone from okay to sort of bad to the worst possible situation that you could think of. So of course Muslim was going to do anything to protect his, you know, his Imam. So he tried to get back to him so desperately. This was the 7th day of Dhul Hajj. That whole day and the following day, Hazrat Muslim tried to get out of the city, but all the exits and gates in and out were guarded by Ibn Ziyad's soldiers. On the 8th, late in the evening, tired, hungry and exhausted, Hazrat Muslim knocked at the door of a house towards the edge of the city, and a lady opened the door. Hazrat Muslim requested for a little water so that his thirst would be quenched. The lady gave him some water, which was very kind of her, and when she learnt who he was, she invited him in and offered him shelter for the night. This lady was called Taw'a. She gave Muslim some food and water and took him to a room where he might spend the night. But later that night, Taw'a's son came home. When he learned that the man Ibn Ziyad was looking for was in his mother's house, he felt that he would be rewarded by him if he got Hazrat Muslim arrested. Again, there is another example of someone being greedy about this world, uncle. Look at this lady's son. She wanted to give up Muslim just so that he could get a little reward.
Yeah.
It's just not right, and it's just not fair. So many things could have been avoided in the leading up to Karbala. But look, these people, they were doing anything, absolutely anything, to stop the Imam in his mission.
It's a shame, because they don't realize how much better life would be if the Imams were to rule.
A lot of people say that, you know, when they look at the Muslim world, they say, oh, if only there were good leaders and true leaders. And I always shake my head and I think, well, we had 12 amazing leaders, but nobody listened to them.
Yeah.
Because of people like this. But without his mother knowing, he slipped out in the darkness of the night and gave the information to a captain in Ibn Ziyad's army. Early the next morning, 500 soldiers surrounded the house of Ta'a and demanded Muslim's surrender. Hazrat Muslim came out holding his sword. 3 times he drove away the enemy. Twice Ibn Ziyad had to send in more men, which just goes to show it runs in the family, really. All the men from that family were really strong, were really brave fighters and warriors. While Hazrat Muslim was fighting, some soldiers went up the rooftops and began throwing stones and lighted torches at him. Others dug a trench, you know, like say there's like the sand, and then you dig all around it, and they covered it with grass, so it's like a hole in the ground. Although he was badly wounded and totally exhausted, Hazrat Muslim kept on fighting, which is what we'd expect from such a great man.
Yep.
Then he fell into the trench, because, you know, it looked like the ground was all level, but it wasn't. There was a trench, a hole in the ground. More than 50 soldiers jumped upon him and chained him up. I know, he was dragged to the court of Ibn Ziyad. I can't believe it. What a hero, going down like that. Should I remind you of what Imam Hussein did today, the 3rd of Muharram? Are you ready, uncle?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Today, Imam Hussein called the tribe of Bani Asad who lived near Karbala and bought the land of Karbala from them for 60,000 dirhams. He gave the land back to them and said to the men, I will soon be killed here. All the members of my family will be killed too. No one will bury us. When we are dead, please come and put some soil over us. Next, he called the women of Bani Asad and said, if your men are too scared to come, then you do it. Finally, he called the children and said to them, if your parents cannot come, then you come as if you are playing and cover us with soil. He asked them to point out his grave to those who came for ziyarat. So even then, even on the 3rd of Muharram, it's so sad to think that the Imam knew what was going to happen, and even the place where he would die. And he also knew that people would come and visit him and, you know, come from all over the world to you know, speak with him and share their problems. And that's why he said, mark this spot for me. It's so touching. It really breaks my heart. Soon there was a lot of noise, and Umar ibn Sa'd arrived with 4,000 soldiers. They had come to fight against the Imam. So today we remember Hadrat Muslim. He was the cousin of Imam Hussein. When the people of Kufa had written to the Imam, he had sent Hadrat Muslim ahead to Kufa. At first, the people of Kufa welcomed Muslim and promised to support the Imam, and the Muslims stayed in the house of Hani ibn Urwa, who was a true friend of the Imam. But the new ruler of Kufa, Ibn Ziyad, was a very wicked man, and he told the people that if they helped Muslim, he would kill them. Of course, you know, uncle, if someone came into your home and threatened you,
Yeah.
how would you feel? Would you, you know, would you try and fight them, or would you be scared? What would you do?
I'd probably feel a bit of both.
Yeah. And I think they did as well. I think the people of Kufa were confused and they were scared, and that's why they left Muslim on his own. But Hani stayed loyal to Muslim and was taken prisoner by Ibn Ziyad and killed later on. On the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, when Hadrat Muslim saw that the people of Kufa had turned against him, he left Hani's house and he wanted to get a message to the Imam not to come to Kufa. He walked through the streets all alone. He had no food or water and nowhere to stay. No one would help him. He sat down on the doorstep of a house, and a lady called Tu'a opened the door and said, "It's late. Why don't you go home to your family?" Muslim said, "I'm alone in this city." She said, "Who are you?" He told her, "I am Muslim and I was sent by the Imam to guide the people of Kufa, but they have all left me." When Tu'a found out who Muslim was, she asked him to come inside her house. But Tu'a's son was a soldier of Ibn Ziyad. He had been looking for Hadrat Muslim all day, and when he found Muslim in the house, he rushed out to tell the naughty men who were waiting there. Soon, there were thousands of men, well, not thousands, but hundreds of men outside the lady's house. Hadrat Muslim didn't want them to come inside, so he left the house and went out into the street again. They attacked him, but he fought bravely and they had to keep moving back. They couldn't even fight with Muslim, even when there were so many, and even when he was alone. They went on the roof and threw stones at him. And just like I said before, they dug a pit and he fell in. Hazrat Muslim was worried not for himself but Imam Hussein, who was on his way to Kufa, where the people had changed their mind. Ibn Ziyad said, "Kill Muslim." And just as he was about to be killed, Muslim turned towards the Qibla, pointing towards it with his finger, and said, "Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah, accept my Islams, O my Imam Hussein." He was hurt really badly, and all of his body was dragged along in the streets of Kufa. It was a terrible, terrible thing to happen. And that's why today is a very, very special day. All the days of Muharram are very, very special,
Yep.
Uncle. But we do remember Hazrat Muslim, and we remember how, you know, how important it is to spread the message of Imam Hussein. You were mentioning just before we came on and talked
Yeah.
about this story that you used to do things when you were younger.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we used to have the Arba'in march.
Yeah.
when I was younger, I would give out leaflets to people who didn't know about Islam and the Imam. I would give out hot chocolate to the people who were in the march. Just little nice things. Nothing complicated, nothing which is too much. Because at the end of the day, Islam is all about how you are as a human being. And if you can make people smile, then you've done a really good job.
Alhamdulillah, that's a really, really nice thing to remember. And thank you so much for being here with us today, children, and listening to this story about Muslim, a really brave messenger, warrior, and of course a really trusted friend of Imam Hussein, and a good companion who was loyal right until the end. He's someone that we can learn from about doing the right thing and being brave, even in the face of hundreds of enemies. Thank you for being here with us, and thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon next time. Ma salam, children. Ma salam.
Assalamu alayk ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayk ya Aba Abdullah.
Assalamu alaikum, children.
Assalamu alaikum, kids.
Alaikum salam, everyone. Alaikum salam, children.
Oh, I just remembered. What's that thing you say when you send condolences?
Condolences to you and your family on the passing and tragedy of Imam al-Hussein.
Yes.
Condolences.
Condolences. How do you say it in Arabic again, Pip?
I think it's Azam Allah.
Azam Allah.
Azam
Azam Allah. Yeah, well, we're going to continue looking at the journey that Imam Hussein made. Today, he arrived in a town called Qasr Bani Maqatir. And the strangest thing happened here because there was another camp set up. But who? What and why? It was the camp of Al-Jufi.
Camp of Al-Jufi.
He was a Kufan who didn't want... No, yeah, we don't say it like that, Pip, because maybe... Well, we'll find out about his story and why he was there in the middle of nowhere. I mean...
But he's a Kufan.
Yeah, well, look, let's just...
Kufans are not nice.
They left Imam Hussein.
They did, but why did they leave Imam Hussein?
Because they were loving this world too much. They were brought out by the baddies.
Well, we know for a fact that Al-Jufi, he didn't want to be known to Imam Hussein, thinking about saving his life, and he knew of Imam Hussein's status. He knew Imam Hussein was very special, but still he wanted to run away from him.
Is that why he was in the desert?
Yeah, that's why he went into the middle of the desert.
Well, I bet Imam found him and I bet Imam killed him.
No, Imam Hussein didn't kill him. That's not what Imam Hussein would have done.
Imam Hussein was loving.
Very loving and kind, and he always gave people a chance, didn't he, Penny?
Yeah.
Well, he knew that Imam Hussein was very special. He knew that he would have a good life in the end if he went with Imam Hussein, but there was no one to fight the enemies. You see, Jufi was kind and really respectful to Imam Hussein. He even offered him horses. His best one was called Malhaka. Imam Hussein said, "No, I don't want your horse."
Why?
Because he said, "Look, if you're not going to fight with me, I need you to be with me and the horse, not just the horse itself. Keep the horse. I don't need the horse." They could have used the horse and it might have helped them, but he wanted people with good hearts to be with him. He didn't just want gifts from anybody, but they wouldn't join him.
You know what? Imam Hussein was trying to tell him that, you know what, I don't need these horses. I don't need your money.
Yeah.
What he needed was people by his side.
Exactly.
Because Imam was saying, you know, he's the Prince of Paradise. He has everything if he wants it, but he's just trying to teach the world that he's giving everyone the opportunity to come and join him.
Ooh, opportunity. Penny, what does that mean?
It means like a chance.
A chance to well done. A chance to do good. You see, he wanted those camps that he met on his way to join him.
How beautiful is Imam Hussein?
So beautiful. And then
you know why? He gives everyone the chance to be good.
Absolutely.
He invites all to join him.
Even monsters.
Oh gosh, yeah, and wonderful people like yourself,
I
Penny.
heard the jinn tried to help Imam Hussein as well.
Gosh, even they loved him.
Oh, everyone loves Imam Hussein.
You see,
Subhanallah.
Imam Hussein wanted people to have a good life in the next world, because we do believe that there is a special place that you can get to after you leave this world, and in order to get there you need to kind of, it's almost like collecting good points, and you can do that by
You know how
being
you
with
can
your
collect
mum.
loads of good points, Leila.
Yeah,
By reciting the salawat.
Let's
Are you
do
ready,
it.
children?
let's do that now.
Allahumma
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa
ali
ali Muhammad. Well, you know, Imam Hussein knew that many people had sins, and sins are something that you do when you do something wrong, like eating haram food or lying or backbiting. And a good way of getting rid of them, Penny, is by doing something good. So he was giving people a chance to join him, to go to Karbala, to save Islam, so that all those sins could be washed away and wiped out.
I wish I could join him so all my sins would be washed away. Although I don't have that many.
Well, Penny, you're still young, and I can see just by the fact that you're wearing your hijab, you're already trying to be a follower of the Ahlul Bayt. I know, because you said, didn't you, you went to a majlis for Lady Fatima, peace be upon her,
Yeah.
and they were talking of, that's Imam Hussein's mum, as you know, and they were talking all about hijab, and that's when you started wearing your hijab the way
Yeah.
you do now. MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Well done, Sister Benny.
Yeah, and he didn't want to go with Imam Hussein because he knew that there was no one to fight alongside
Basically,
him.
he didn't want to join what he was in his words saying. Imam Hussein's going to lose, so why do I want to die?
Yeah,
Can I tell you something?
yeah,
I said this last time in the last majlis.
yeah.
The reason why people didn't join Imam Hussein is because they love this world. You know, Al-Ja'fi, the reason why he didn't join Imam Hussein is because he was too busy worrying about himself.
I know.
About his horses. I mean, he was willing to give all of that, but he just didn't want to give his life.
No.
But Imam Hussein was giving him an opportunity
I know.
of a lifetime.
Of a
What a
lifetime.
silly person.
I know. Gosh, Penny, what would you have done if you'd been there?
I'd give all my hijab pins and
Ooh.
all my hijabs for Imam Hussein.
Oh my God, Penny, I
They're
know.
really important to me.
They
I
are
think
very
Imam
important
Hussein
to
would
you.
say, keep one hijab.
Probably.
Yeah, keep one hijab to preserve your modesty. That's right. Well, on the 3rd of Muharram, a couple of days after Imam Hussein had arrived in Qasr Bani Maqatil, there were 4,000 enemy soldiers that were under the command of Umar ibn Sa'd, and they arrived and they surrounded Imam Hussein's camp, and they cut him off from the river Euphrates, the Furat river, and that was the only way that they could get water.
Oh dear.
So
So how did they quench their thirst?
Quench?
What's quench?
What's quench, Penny?
It means to
I know.
Yeah.
When you're really, really thirsty and you have a glass of water, my mummy says, is your thirst quenched? And I say, yes, mummy, that basically means my thirst is gone. But do you know what else my mum says?
What?
And you should always remember this. Are you listening, Sister Penny?
Yes, I am.
My mum says that every time you drink water, you should think Hussein. Do you know what that means?
You should think of Imam Hussein every time you take a sip of
And
water.
it makes me really sad.
And
Is it because he was so thirsty?
Yeah,
Very
because
thirsty.
he died thirsty. You know, my mum was telling me a story that Imam Hussein's son is it Imam Zain al-Abidin.
There were 3 sons with him.
Oh no, you know the Imam had one son who was an Imam.
Yes, Imam Sajjad.
Imam Sajjad, the 4th Imam.
The 4, yes?
We recited salawat for him.
Yes, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Once my mum was telling me that he was going in like the town centre.
Yeah.
And they were slaughtering, killing an animal for meat. We eat goat and we eat sheep.
Yeah.
And then the Imam stopped.
Yeah.
And he asked that person who was slaughtering the goat.
Yeah.
He said, have you given the goat water?
Oh.
You know why?
No, but it makes me very sad.
Because he remembered his father, and then the person replied,
Hmm.
obviously we give water because before we do it we have to give water. And the Imam said, oh, I feel very sad for my own father who was killed
Wow.
without water.
That's so sad.
It makes me really sad. Sorry, can we continue?
On the 4th of Muharram, Imam Hussein decided to speak to Umar ibn Saad because he didn't want any fighting. Remember, Imam Hussein didn't go to Karbala to start a war or fight or cause any trouble for anyone, but he wanted Ibn Saad to, to be on the right path.
Yeah.
So there was a long meeting. It went on for quite a few days, and he was saying, look, we are the Ahlul Bayt, we are the rightful leaders, what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
But again, maybe Umar ibn Saad was, I bet his feelings were all mixed up because he wanted money, he wanted to be leader, but he was also scared that Ibn Ziyad would get him if he didn't do as he was told. So even he had a story to tell, but in the end he made the wrong choice, Pip.
He's a silly man.
He is a silly
Naughty
man.
man.
On the 5th of Muharram, there were more and more soldiers coming in, and the situation was getting terrible. You can imagine the camp of Imam Hussein wasn't very big. And then on the other side, you've
It's not
got...
about quantity, Layla, it's about quality.
That's a good point, but could you imagine or you're on the battlefield and you're looking across the desert and all you can see are thousands and thousands and thousands of men.
That would be so scary.
But it just goes to show how scared they were of Imam
and it
Hussein.
just goes to show you how brave my Imam it was.
Yeah.
Not just your Imam, Pip. He's all
I
ours.
know that, but
Yeah.
do you know when he's my Imam because I love him.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I said that, Penny. I know the Imam is the
Okay,
Imam
let's
for the whole
not.
world.
We all loved him.
Yeah, but I love him more.
I
Okay.
don't think so.
On the 6th of Muharram, basically there was no water and it was getting really, really hard for the camp of Imam Hussein to manage. They tried to dig wells just with their bare hands, to find water under the ground. They were getting really, really desperate because the women and children, they were going without water. How do you feel after...
I get thirsty really easily.
When
They
you
must
do
have been
PE at
so
school
thirsty.
and you do sports, Penny, I've seen you gulp down a big bottle of water. Well, imagine you've been in the desert for
Do
days
you go
and
to
days.
the same school?
No. Well, once I saw her because I went to...
Sports day.
It was sports day and you invited me, didn't you?
Yeah.
Thank you. And I saw Penny after the egg and spoon race gulp down a really big bottle of water. And when I think about what happened on these days leading up to the 10th of Muharram, I thought, my God, how did they manage
And
all
all
that
you
time?
done was do an egg and spoon race. I mean, that's not even that much effort. It's like just an egg and then a spoon. It's like breakfast run.
Actually, it was very hard.
Yeah.
But yes, they were in a desert and
I
it was
know.
hot. And we
Absolutely.
live in England and it's cold. And
Absolutely.
Where do you live?
raining. In England.
In
That's
London,
nice.
yeah. Imam Zain al-Abidin at this time was very, very ill and he wanted to fight, but he couldn't. He was just lying down in one of the tents.
You know, that would be horrible because, just imagine your father has not that many people.
Yeah.
And then you're ill and you want to help him, but you're kind of helpless.
You're
But
helpless.
my mummy told me
Yeah.
that Allah made him ill so that he didn't fight.
What? That makes no sense.
No. What Penny means is that there was a reason for his illness, because if he had fought, then who would have been the Imam after Imam Hussein? Do you see?
You're right, But
That's a good point you've raised, Penny. Well done. Thanks for raising that.
yeah, thanks for that.
On the 7th of Muharram, Umar ibn Saad made sure that Amr bin al-Hajjaj took charge of the army and the river. That's because they were stopping Imam Hussein getting to the river and from reaching it. The water shortage was causing so much pain for everybody in the camp. I mean, just imagine being in that heat and there being no water.
One thing though.
What?
Yesterday I went to the majlis and the lecturer, the sheikh, he was saying that they stopped at the river Euphrates.
Yes.
And then, later on, he said the river Furat. And then later on, he said something like Al-Qama.
Yeah.
So were there 3 different rivers?
Well, the Euphrates River is how we would say it in English. The river Furat, I think, is probably in Arabic, and Al-Alqama.
It's just like a title.
Yeah, they're just yeah, that's how we would know which
like
river it was.
nicknames.
Yeah, like the River Nile or other rivers, but this river was particularly important, wasn't it, Penny? Because it was the only source of water. That means it was the only place they could get water.
Is that why they died thirsty?
Gosh, yeah, they did, and it was terrible.
They didn't die, they got killed.
They got killed, and well, they were thirsty before they died. It was a horrible way to leave this world.
How could they fight while they were thirsty?
That's a good question. I think about that a lot. How did they have the energy and the strength and
Because
the courage to
energy
go
came
on?
from Allah.
The energy did come from Allah.
Allah had chosen these people. You must remember that, Penny.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's true.
On the 8th of Muharram, the Imam Hussein, he sent a message to Ibn Sa'ad to meet, asking him, so don't you fear the day of judgment when you have to stand in front of Allah?
But you know what? He couldn't care because Ibn Sa'ad was loyal to Yazid. He couldn't care about Allah.
No.
He had the love of this world in his heart.
Absolutely.
Not the love of Allah.
Absolutely.
Imam was trying to tell us that. You know that.
I know. That's what he was trying to get through to Umar ibn Sa'd, that look, don't just think about this world, think about the next world, think about what's going to happen to you and your family if you continue fighting with me. On the 9th of Muharram, the Imam said to Umar ibn Sa'd and to his enemy, he said, look, can we have some time just to spend alone with our family and friends, to spend the night in prayer and to think, because we're going to be leaving this world very soon and we just want some time, you know, to be with Allah and to think about everything.
I remember one thing about this night.
What?
It always like makes me think a lot, you know.
Yeah.
You know the story, can you please tell me that story about, you know, when the Imam puts out the candle?
That story is not for today, Pip. It's
Oh.
a very sad story and I have to get ready to tell you it because I know what's going to happen.
Maybe you can tell us tomorrow.
I can, because
That
I'll
would be
probably cry.
amazing.
I'll probably get really, really upset. So I hope you have some tissues with you tomorrow because,
Well, you know what, Sister Layla?
yeah,
Condolences to you and your family.
and
عظم
you.
الله أجورنا وأجوركم.
Azam Allah.
Condolences. It's good to cry.
Is
in
it?
Muharram.
But my
Yeah.
eyes get really
But you
sore.
get loads of rewards, Layla.
Yeah, my mum told me that, you know, if you cry, Bibi Fatima comes and she collects your tears.
Yeah.
And she takes them to heaven.
I always cry when I'm in the majlis and I do matam. Like
Well, I
that.
don't normally cry, but I cry for Imam Hussein because he's my hero. And he's the children's at home's hero. Is he your hero?
So your hero too? He's definitely mine.
Let's
all
recite a
our
salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, children. Ma salam. Thanks for
Ma
watching. See you. Assalamu alaikum, children. Hello. Teddy here was just talking to one of his best friends, Giraffe. They're really good friends and they were both telling me about an incident not so long ago when Giraffe fell down the side of the sofa. So he told Sally Spider to get Jerry Giraffe to come and help him. And you did, didn't you, Teddy? You know, good friends are hard to come by these days. But this incident reminds me of a lovely young elephant who goes by the name of Eddie. Just like Teddy, he was a good friend too. Eddie the elephant was a big, bumbling type of elephant, you know, kind of really happy and friendly. He was really popular and had many friends too. Eddie lived alone with his mum and little sister in a small flat on the outskirts of the savannah. And although Eddie wasn't as big and as strong as he wanted to be, he was always helpful to his mum. He wasn't what you would call very clever, but he got by at school, and most importantly, he was a kind elephant who had lots to offer his friends. He was a good laugh too. Because Eddie was an elephant, he would get buddied up with new children who came into Savannah High School, and this was so they would feel protected. He was used to being a big brother to his sister Amelia, so he volunteered to help the younger children get settled into school. He thought the new kids who came from primary school were really small and cute, and he enjoyed looking after them and showing them around, especially at lunchtime when the dinner hall was crowded and noisy. There was one new kid in the school, Billy Bison, the son of Bob Bison, the baker, who was really scared. Even though he would grow into a big, big bison one day, he still had a long way to go. He was so nervous about starting what he called big school, but soon enough he was getting used to moving around the school and learning his new timetable, which was a bit tricky at first, but his favourite lesson soon became science. Eddie rolled along the school corridor, high-fiving friends, making plans for football club after school and trying to finish homework projects. Soon enough, all his work had to be given in to the teacher, and then the exam season would begin. Oh boy, he thought, a lot of work there to be done, especially if he wanted to get into a good college. Eddie was going to train to be a plumber, and I think he's going to be a great plumber. Whilst Eddie was getting on with things, and as the weeks rolled by, things weren't going so great for Billy Bison. Because of the way he looked and behaved, it was easy for him to become the target of bullies. Chris and his crew of crocodiles were always causing trouble, getting the new kids on their own, looking at their new pencil cases or nice purses and wallets. What a bunch of meanies! And no matter how many times they were sent to detention or how many meetings the teachers had with their parents, there was no getting around the fact that these crocs were here to stay. This was one of the reasons that the buddying up system was put into place, so that new kids like Billy would feel safe and protected from crocs like Chris and his crew. As Billy Bison was getting ready to go home and the last bell sounded for everyone to leave the school, Chris Croc was waiting for Billy at the school gates along with his entire crew. As Billy walked towards the gates, he could see them standing there and his heart began to pound. He was terrified. He kept his head low like this and tried to walk past them without being noticed, but it wasn't happening as they had been waiting for him. Chris was the first one to approach him. So said Chris, "You're little Billy Bison, the baker's son. So have you got any food for us? Any tasty pastries in your bag, The rest of the crew began laughing. They thought their leader, Chris, was hilarious. But actually, he was a little silly. "No, I haven't, and I want you to leave me alone and stop picking on me." "Ooh la la! Well, you've got quite a mouth on you, haven't you? You need to be shown who's boss, and I think I will give you a lesson about how to respect those that want things from you and that you should give to them." That's when Billy started to run, running faster than he ever did in his whole life, like his life depended on it. And at that moment it felt like it did. He was sweating in the heat of the mid-afternoon, and he could hear the thudding noise of crocs racing behind him. I would have been terrified too. Billy found some long grass to hide in, and as he crouched down, sitting really low, he waited and watched as the crocs tried to find him. Billy had to think quick and try and get some help. And that's when he remembered his friend Eddie the elephant. But how would he get a message to him asking for help? Very carefully and quietly, Billy reached for his mobile phone and tapped a message to Eddie asking for help. He told him exactly where he was hiding and what was going on. Poor Billy, scared and all alone, and the one person who could help wasn't here. At just that moment, his phone rang and the crocs turned in the direction of ringing and thought, bingo, we've got him. Oh dear, Billy's phone wasn't on silent and it rang really loud. He tried to turn his phone off, looking for somewhere to hide, and luckily found a nearby cave. He went in and waited for the worst moment of his life. When he was in the cave by the rocky entrance, he realized his mistake, because now he was trapped and had nowhere to run to. He was backed into a corner by the approaching crocs, and he almost burst into tears when right there and then the crocs went flying in all directions, going high up in the air and falling straight onto their backs with a loud thud noise. It was Eddie the elephant. He'd come to Billy's rescue and really saved the day. Chris came round to his senses, wondering if a bulldozer had hit him, because that's what it felt like. But no, it was Eddie. He was young, but still strong. Imagine how strong he would become when he was fully grown, thought Chris. Chris was still on his back, with Eddie towering above him, blocking out the sunlight with his huge ears and face. Eddie mate, what are you doing here? I thought you were at football club. Chris was trying to pretend that nothing was wrong, but Eddie could see through his lies. Eddie said, I know what you've been up to, you mean bully, picking on Billy the bison, trying to steal his food and new pencil case. What's your problem? Why don't you pick on someone like me? Go on, I dare you. Chris let out a nervous chuckle. What are you talking about, Eddie? I haven't got a clue what you're on about. Eddie said, I may not be as clever as the other kids in school, but I always protect my friends, especially when they call me for help. Chris was still rolling around on the floor, looking quite pathetic. Come on out here, Eddie called to Billy, who came out of the cave with hot, fresh tears rolling down his cheek. You owe an apology to Billy, and you're also coming with me to see your parents and the teachers back at the school. Hey, Billy, my little friend, tell Eddie that nothing happened and that we were playing hide and seek. Eddie had had enough of Chris's lies and pushed him back on the ground and threatened to call the police if he didn't tell the truth. And the truth he did tell, and it got him into a lot of trouble. When the whole mess had been sorted out, Billy sat down beside Eddie, who started crying again. He thought about what had happened and thanked Eddie for protecting him, even when they weren't in school. Eddie put his arm around Billy and told him that he had been really brave and that he was a good runner and that he should try out for the school's athletics team. That gave Billy some hope, knowing that he was good at something. Eddie took Billy home and promised him he would always look out for him and be there in his corner if he ever needed anything. That was a wonderful story. Eddie was a true friend, a friend you could call on for help, just like when Imam Hussein called for his friends' help, like Habib ibn Muzahir. Habib was a childhood friend of Imam Hussein's and was there during the Battle of Karbala. Imam Hussein, Abbas and Ali Akbar were busy from dawn until midday on the battlefield, collecting their families and friends and bringing them back to the camp. Between Dhuhr and Asr time, Habib came to Hussein. He said, "My master, Hussein, allow me to go to the battlefield. Let me go back to Allah and give my life for Islam." Habib, my childhood friend, stay with me, said Imam Hussein. You give comfort to me, my friend. But Habib kept asking and asking to go to the battlefield, and finally Imam Hussein gave his permission. Hussein helped Habib onto the horse, and he rode into the battlefield and fought so bravely until he was finally overpowered and fell to the ground. As Habib fell to the ground, an enemy soldier came over to Habib, who lay on the ground, and hurt him so badly that he went back to Allah. What a great friend was Habib, defending the Imam in battle, leaving his family behind to go to his friend. You know, I hope we all get the chance to have a friend like this, someone who would do anything for you. One of my good friends is here with me now, and that's Teddy, and he's very kind to me and to all his other friends too, like Giraffe. We'll see you next time, children. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now. Ma salam.